Okay.
Ellyn, great to see you. Thanks for making the time to come and have a chat with me. I'm really excited to talk to you actually because you're doing something that particularly interests me. So we're going to talk about what is essentially brain health, I think, today,
Mhm.
aren't we? Among other things. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about what you're doing with Mind Vibe?
Sure. Yeah. This is my favorite subject, by the way, brain
I'm
health.
sure, yeah.
So, we are launching a nervous system regulator. This is Mind Vibe. This is our first technology that we're launching as a wellness device. And what it does is it helps to reduce stress.
Right,
And people might say, why is stress important to brain health? And the answer to that is stress in the nervous system is the underlying driver behind so many downstream symptoms that can
right.
eventually create chronic health conditions.
Okay. Can
Chronic,
I ask you about that?
sure.
Because I mean, and I'm not an expert, so maybe I've got this wrong, but my understanding was that there are some good types of stress and there's some stress that's not so good. I mean, presumably you're talking about dealing with the stress that's not good for people. I mean, what about the good stuff?
Yeah. So stress is important. Um, Stress is important. It is a condition of the human body.
Yeah.
Stress is that ability to react and run away. It's known as the fight, flight, or freeze state.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's critical for our survival, right? Stress is what builds muscle. Stress is where you learn lessons. Are those challenges that make you grow.
Mm.
But when humans are in a chronic state of stress, where you are always under stress
Okay.
and there is no lever to put the brake on, that is when being in that overdrive creates situations where your body cannot recover or heal. Imagine if you're lifting weights all the time and you don't give yourself a rest day. What happens? You are sore, you can cause joint issues, you
Yeah.
don't build muscle efficiently.
No. In fact, you need rest time to build muscle, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those recover days are essential.
Yeah. So tell us about how does Mind Vibe help fix that problem? Because I mean it's a pretty big problem, I would have thought. I mean, I know a lot of people that are under pretty much constant stress through
Yeah,
work or whatever. I mean, how does Mind Vibe help you deal with that?
sure. So Mind Vibe is an ultra low current electrical current modulator. So it essentially engages that rest, digest, and recover function
Right.
for you. There are ways to do it otherwise, and you've heard maybe many of people have heard about how important it is to meditate
Yeah.
or to breathe. You hear that all the time. Breathe,
Yeah.
take a break, go outside in nature. For many people, because they have been living with that chronic stress, it's hard for them to access that quiet space. Like
Yeah.
for many people, thinking about quieting the mind, it creates anxiety. So Mind Vibe basically engages that rest, digest, and recover without you even having to think about it.
Okay. And how did you, I mean, where did the idea come from? I mean, it's a brilliant idea. I can
It
see
is
why,
brilliant.
but where did
And
that come from? I mean, is it based
so
on research you've been doing? I mean, what's the background to this?
yeah, the background comes from one of my favorite people in the world. He's one of the grandfathers of neuromodulation. His name is Dr. Yakov Katznelson, and he and his business partner, Hank Beckoff, have been doing research around vagus nerve stimulation, and particularly our mode of vagus nerve stimulation
Right.
that goes back decades. So Dr. Katznelson had been an anesthesiologist in a Leningrad pediatric ward when there was a shortage of pain meds. And so he started playing around with the electrical physiology of the body to mimic a pain-killing effect. And that's where this technology was born. And then he
Okay.
was
And,
recruited to
and
the States.
and for people that aren't familiar with this, I mean, just briefly explain what the vagus nerve is.
Sure, yeah. So the vagus nerve is the longest bundle of nerves throughout your whole body. It spans from your brain to every major organ, and it's like the master conductor of your body's orchestra.
Right.
So it's responsible for all of your automatic functions, such as the way your heart beats, the way your mood is managed, the way you digest food, the way you process oxygen and CO2 in your body, the way you release hormones.
Right.
And so it's very critical for your overall health.
And how does Mind Vibe help that then?
Sure, yeah. So the vagus nerve is that information superhighway that connects the brain and body.
Mhm.
It's also, many people don't realize it, but the majority of your serotonin is processed through your gut. It travels
Right.
through the vagus nerve to the brain. Serotonin is that happy hormone.
Yeah.
And so, what Mind Vibe does is it introduces um, ultra low electrical current through non-invasively through the skin at points here and here, and then acupressure points on the earlobes that mimic the frequencies that the vagus nerve communicates with your rest, digest, and recover function.
Right.
So it sounds like really woo-woo and out there. But in fact, we all operate using electrical signals. You're
They're
blinking
just in
your
the body,
eyes.
aren't they?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
it's part of how we operate. It's our operating system.
Yeah. And
And
how successful? I mean, how? I mean, how? What's the word? I mean, I'm looking. I'm asking about effectiveness. I mean, how effective is the technology in helping people with those issues?
sure. So vagus nerve stimulation and electrical stimulation has actually been around for a couple of decades,
Mm.
implantable, as well as topical. And there's just a trove of research overall about the safety and efficacy of vagus nerve stimulation for certain conditions. With our technology specifically, we've done a number of clinical studies where we show very high levels of
Right.
efficacy that are enduring in conditions. So we've launched it as a wellness device because it's so safe.
Right.
5,200 vibers is what we call it because it's mind vibers with no adverse side effects, no serious adverse side effects. And we've seen amazing transformation with it. I got involved because it saved my son during the pandemic. Um,
Right. Okay. And I mean, that's interesting that it saved your son. I mean, um, what's the market for this? I mean, what sort of people are going to want to buy this? Is it just people that are chronically stressed, or is it? I mean, is it a bit more sophisticated than that? I mean, who
so
would want
this
to
is
use it?
yeah, this is such a challenging question because when you think about a product, you think of about a very specific use. Who
Yeah.
does it, especially in the medical world or pharmacy world, what molecule does it affect?
Yeah.
Our technology supports the underlying um, dysregulation of the nervous system. Stress manifests in so many different
Yeah.
ways. Poor sleep, aches and pains, inflammation, which is huge,
Yeah.
mood disorder, depression, anxiety, lack of focus. And so when we fix or when we rebalance, or what many call restoring homeostasis, restoring balance,
Yeah.
when we do that, we see so many stress related conditions improve. Less reliance on substances to make you feel better. We've had so many of our vibers stop having to take their gummies every night or drink their glass of bourbon every night. Less agitation, um, improved focus. That's the other beautiful thing. Once people get a baseline of mind vibe, what we hear is that people are able to access flow more quickly. They're much more present. They're
Yeah.
much less bothered by the noise that they might otherwise respond to. And that's where I love this idea of being able to support anyone on this continuum of floundering to flourishing. You want to up level your performance? Great. You're in a stuck state? Great. We can help move you along based on where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me ask you about just to come back to the potential buyers here, the customers, the users, however you want to
Sure.
describe it. I mean, there's a couple of things that strike me. One is there's a boatload of people that are stressed out at work. And then there's a boatload of people that are probably struggling that are that have stress that is not necessarily work related. I mean, are you targeting it at a particular area? I mean, is it something that companies would buy to offer to their staff, or is it something purely that you focus on individuals? I mean, how does that sort of work?
Yes. Yes. So we're actually, we are a relatively new company. We're
Yeah,
expanding, but we're testing these buying theses. And so what we're seeing, for example, are practitioners, multi-location practitioners who are wanting to offer this as a first step before having to prescribe drugs. So
yeah,
that's one area. Wellness again, than employers who are wanting to bring in something more than just a meditation practice or
yeah.
massage therapy, which is all great, by the way. But the beauty of our tech is you can have it on while you're having a meeting. You don't have to, you don't have to remove
Yeah.
yourself from work to use it. And that's something that's very appealing. And then schools. There are schools
Okay.
in the Middle East who are interested, and we're getting buying signals here in the US as well. But our LOI is with a group in the Middle East who wants to offer this to their middle school and high schoolers to help them regulate so that they can focus and so that they can up level.
Okay. So
And
that,
then individual consumers. We will
yeah,
eventually get a home unit to the home.
right,
Oh, one other group, gyms and longevity centers who
right.
are wanting to offer modalities as a way to, again, enhance their offering.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that spectrum of potential users, isn't it? I mean, on the one hand, I can see why companies, certainly if they're caring employers, they would want their staff to be able to cope better with stress, which is
Yes.
what you're able to do. And then on the other hand, I mean, it's really interesting your point about children, because I mean, I'm quite glad I'm not at school anymore because I think it's quite hard for kids.
Yes.
Actually, I mean, standards have gone up. It's there's a lot more homework. There's a lot. I mean, I had a great time at school, mainly because I didn't do a lot of schoolwork.
Yep.
I think it's not the same for kids now. And I think the level of stress is higher. There's a lot more anxiety in schools with young people. So, I mean, I can see why schools might well be interested because ultimately, if you can help kids manage that stress and anxiety, it will help them achieve more in terms of results and all the rest of it. So, it's quite an interesting spectrum of potential customers you've got there.
Yeah, it's one of our biggest challenges because when you're speaking with investors or others who are interested in supporting the company, you hear, right? When you're selling to everybody, you're selling to no one.
Yeah, yeah,
And so this is why we're really testing out the market right now to understand what is the big lever. And it's been really fun and interesting because we're able to generate revenue while we're testing out these
yeah,
markets.
yeah. I mean, I think it's always interesting to talk to customers.
Yes,
They always give you useful stuff. I mean, not all the time,
absolutely.
but if you talk to enough customers, you'll get useful ideas from them. No doubt about that.
Exactly.
And let me ask you, I mean, talking about stress, it must have been quite a challenge for you to get this up and running. I mean, did you use it to
Oh,
look
yeah.
after your own well-being on
I
the
use it
journey?
on a regular basis.
Right.
Anyone who's run a startup understands the peaks and valleys of emotion, of stress, of cute
Yeah.
yes to like, oh no. And so yeah, it is that muscle, right, that you're flexing to get things going. And so yeah, it's incredibly stressful. But it's also really motivating when
Yeah.
you see, when you're driving towards a vision. And this is where I was just listening to this book. Um, and what I've come to realize is that you can't just set goals in a vacuum without understanding the wider canvas of the purpose and the values behind it.
Hmm.
Because because the purpose and value, that is the kind of the gas in your tank
Yeah.
to be perseverant and tenacious, in those valleys.
Yeah. And I was about to ask you about that because, I mean, not only is building a business stressful, I mean, it requires a lot of motivation. You got to come back to your point about troughs and peaks and troughs. I mean, it's like riding a roller coaster, isn't it? So you've
Yeah.
got to be pretty motivated to kind of bounce out of bed in the morning and want to get stuck in, particularly
Yes.
if you've had a bad day the day before. I mean, what is it about this that particularly motivated you? I mean, you seem, when we've spoken about it in the past, you seem very passionate about this. I mean, what is
I,
it that is
yeah.
important about this for you in particular?
So we are in this unprecedented time of the way modern society is evolving, right? We
Mm,
have AI, which creates stress, not only in real life for work, but just stressors on the body. And the approaches we've taken in the past include um, polypharmacy, multiple medications to treat health. And what we're finding is that it's actually, without understanding the integrative nature of our operating system, it's actually making us more sick and less effective.
mm,
And so for me, my motivating factor is understanding the human condition and just wanting to help in a way that is safe and effective.
mm.
Science based, do no harm, ways to help people feel better.
Yeah,
And so that is my driving force. I don't want any other mom to feel so helpless like I felt when dealing with my son. I don't want, I want people to feel better. And this is one tool in the toolbox to help people get unstuck.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting point, actually. The thing about to come back to your point about parents and children, I mean, it must be awful watching your child struggle with these things and having only very limited ways to kind of help. So
Yeah.
presumably, I mean, what you're saying is that you wanted to address that gap, really,
Yes.
because of what you saw personally.
And, when we think about the environment that we're living in,
Mm.
parents are stressed,
Yeah,
right? There's being more and more asked of them, not only in their work life, but physically, right? We're not eating the way humans were designed to eat.
yeah, yeah,
Endocrine disruptors, toxins, that is that is an additional stressor on the body that is not divorced from the mind. And so for me, yes, I believe that if we can help to balance the nervous system and get people out of their stress state, I know this, that they will be able to manage the issues around them more effectively.
yeah.
And that means caring for an elderly parent. I've seen this on people who have dementia who go through sundowning phases
Mm.
where it really helps to calm them.
Yeah,
That helps the caregiver. And this is just our first tech. We also have a non-invasive deep brain stimulator that actually helps with functional improvements, repairing neuronal connection, and then improving the waste clearance of the brain. But that's down the line. We're really focused right now on getting MindVibe up and going and out there.
yeah. I mean, you've obviously had to overcome quite a lot of challenges to get to where you are. What
Yeah.
sort of challenges do you see in front of you? I mean, I can see that it's a great product. I
Mhm.
can see that you've got a number of really interesting markets to kind of go
Yes.
at.
Yep.
Beyond that, how do you see, I mean, what sort of challenges do you think you're going to have to overcome to get
Yeah.
through that? To get,
Sure.
to get,
One of our large challenges that we're experiencing and will continue to overcome is that the capital markets, they are less excited about product, hardscape product, than they are about AI software. It's just more scalable. But once we overcome that, it really is finding those the right sort of partners who get it, right? This is kind of a sea change in the way we think about mind and body health.
yeah,
In that we're used to treating with meds. This is a different modality that really helps to bring about wellness in a preventative fashion
yeah,
and in a way that doesn't change with just a pill. It takes, there's a 5 session baseline before we see enduring effect. And so that's very different from taking a pill and the pain just goes away for 24 hours. It takes time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, your point about capital markets is quite interesting. I mean, although I'm slightly surprised because the potential benefits of something like this are, I know that it's more challenging to scale it, but the potential benefits are massive to the
Yeah, they are massive,
to
right? This
users. So
is
you would think that investors would be, you know, would recognize the scale of the market. I think
Yeah.
probably the business
I think
language to use.
I believe that they are coming around
Right.
in the sense that they are recognizing that not all not all neuromodulators are the same. First of all, neuromodulation is brand new, so it takes an education
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you get beyond that and they start to understand how it's deployed, then they get it. And so that, there's something like 14% of capital dollars are actually going to devices.
Yeah.
That will, I believe that will change. We're seeing that change as we recognize how it really helps to complement the AI driven software diagnostics that are out there.
Yeah.
So you
And
combine
is
the
there,
two.
I mean, you mentioned AI. Is there an AI component to the way your technology works?
Absolutely. So there are two AI components. One is the natural um, chemical physiological processes. So our technology is smart in that it auto regulates to the individual.
Right.
That is not a traditional AI LLM. It is just the way it operates within the body. But beyond that, there is a software layer that we will plug in that then will be, for those who want to opt in, will be able to provide, take some of that precision data along with the diagnostics to then recommend and assess based on where you are from a heart rate variability standpoint, um, how much, whether you need to vibe, whether you should go outside and walk around and take a breath, um, helping that individual using those AI models to really optimize who they are
Mm.
individually.
Mm. And presumably I mean, once you start to get to scale, there'll also be some interesting things in that data.
Oh my goodness, yes. And we're
Mm.
working with an amazing scientist. And yes, there will be amazing information in that data as we look at different use cases.
Mm.
So, one of the use cases that our docs have had success with is helping people titrate off of certain chronic use of meds. Again, always with their physician. But we'll be able to develop protocols using that data, understanding how to help people do that more effectively.
Yeah. Which I guess is the real benefit, isn't it? Is that if it helps you improve on what you've improved on, if you see what I mean. So it helps you
Yes.
continue to
Yeah,
develop, doesn't it? Really, which is really where you want to get to, because it's there'll be no doubt that you'll learn all sorts of interesting things that will open up new doors, presumably.
that's exactly right. So, we focus on doing what we can with what we have, right? One step at a time, pivoting where we need to,
Yeah.
but then continuing to drive forward based on our mission.
Yeah. And how will you know when you've been successful?
Oh
Because I
gosh.
mean, it's a bit of there's an element of it's bit of a moving feast, really, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
what are you looking for in terms of success?
Yeah, so there's the short answer, which is seeing these devices in people's homes and impacting their health and wellness.
Right.
But beyond that is seeing that tipping point as more and more people become more balanced, we will see a more kind world in terms of interactions within our communities.
So you're
That's like
saying, so let me just get this right. So what you're saying is that you think this can actually change society.
I I know it sounds really aspirational, but yes, I've seen it change work groups
Mm.
because when people come out of their stress, like when you're in stress, you eclipse like
Yeah.
25% of your
Yeah.
brain function. When people come out of stress, they're more patient, they listen better,
Yeah.
they're more curious. And often the things that keep us fighting is feeling like you're misunderstood and being so defensive that you can't be curious.
Mm.
And so I've seen it work in small work groups. I believe the more we become balanced, we'll become more reasonable in the way we interact with each other.
Mm. Maybe you should supply it to some politicians.
I would love to.
I mean, I love to see a bit of ambition. I mean, the idea that you could really change society. I know you're at a fairly early stage compared to that, but
Yeah,
over time, it's such an interesting idea that the technology could begin to heal sort of some relationships that are very conflictual and very tense. I mean, actually, there's a much bigger benefit to that beyond the individual, isn't there? That is really
Yeah.
important
I
potentially.
mean, we can't change anyone who isn't looking to optimize or change, but we've seen very like intense finance bros and, very just intense, high performing people who are like, this is what made me successful. Get on our machine and kind of take a step back. And, one of the comments I got was, you know what? For the first time, I'm able actually to hear what my team is saying,
Mm,
which sounds like crazy because part of effective leadership is listening.
mm,
But how many of us listen with a decision kind of already set in our mind?
mm. Well, I
So,
mean, I think you've only got to look at things like LinkedIn and lots of the literatures around that listening is not a skill that necessarily kids emerge from school with, and it doesn't necessarily get you to where you want to be in your career. So, there's lots of
right.
people that are not that great at listening. That's been my
Yeah,
experience. Or asking questions or being curious, actually, which I think is one of the
yes,
failures of the education system, actually.
that's right. That's right.
Although I think AI might change that because AI is all about asking questions, isn't it? I mean, that's what prompts are really.
Yes. Yep.
So it may be that we're seeing the technology that's emerging now will bring about some of those changes. Because being
I
able to write the essay, if you like, is no longer the critical skill. Being able to ask the right question is the more
exactly.
important skill because the tech will write the essay for you, if you like. So the
That's
the
right.
the the importance of curiosity and asking the right questions and listening to what people say. I mean, the importance of that will probably rise up, I would have thought.
It
And
will.
your technology is very well placed to help with that.
That's right. So you raise a really important point. As AI begins to take on so much of our work,
Mm,
humans need to be able to operate at a much more intense and higher cognitive level
yeah,
because we need to be able to ask those questions. And if one is stressed or dealing with 1,000 different things, which I'm hoping AI will help us to reduce that,
mm,
um, we need to be able to be thoughtful and present and really
yeah,
seeing um, the information for what it is.
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see if that does happen. I mean, I'm not sure that. I mean, I know a lot of people think that AI is going to make everybody's lives a lot easier. I'm not. I mean, technology hasn't got a history of making people's lives easier.
Mhm.
It tends to be the opposite way, has been my experience, much as I like technology. But let me ask you a slightly different question. Let me ask you about how you see your job as the CEO. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. My guess is you love being a CEO. Am I wrong?
I love it, mainly because I have an awesome team that I work with, but it's also really daunting.
Mm,
And it's daunting because the success of the company is very much on my shoulders.
yeah,
And and I'm the one who sees kind of the full scope of the activities. And because we're startup, um, being able to help our R&D guys understand kind of what we're seeing in the market and the conversations I'm having with customers and investors, that translation, there's always a layer of being
yeah,
trying to be able to communicate that.
yeah.
And so you've heard of the lonely CEO,
I
right?
know a
It
few of
can
them.
get very lonely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
but I have a great network that we come together, and it's it's really wonderful to be able to share and discuss, and so that's one of my saving graces in addition to mind vibe.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point you made. I mean, that sort of world didn't really exist when I came into business. Okay, I mean, I came into business a very long time ago,
Mhm.
but it didn't really exist. And it's great to see that those things now exist in a
Yeah,
way that they really didn't,
yeah,
30, 40 years ago. It's a different, I mean, there's much more emphasis on helping people to build businesses, and there's much greater recognition of the importance of networks in doing that, really. Let me ask you about the moment when you decided that you were the person to fix this problem. I mean,
mhm.
just explain how that played out in your mind, because I mean, it's a very interesting proposition, but it's kind of an odd jump to say, I'm going to do something about brain health.
Yeah. Well,
How did
so
that come about?
Yeah, okay, so I've always been very entrepreneurial. I was running my own firm when I
Right.
was introduced to the first neuromodulation company in 2013. Tongue stimulator for gait and balance disorder. I was fascinated and loved this
Wow.
idea of energy helping the body to heal itself.
Yeah.
And so I was involved with this business. I invested a little bit, doubled down again, um, really understood the neuroenergetic and neuromodulation landscape. 2020 comes around, the pandemic hits. My kids are both in stress. My mother has dementia. It's just a crazy time. I call it the dark fall of 2020. And I'm looking for ways to help my family, my son in
Right.
particular, who's become
Right.
suicidal. I don't want to put him on meds. I don't know if it's his hormones, if it's the pandemic, what it is. So I start trying neurostimulators, and they either create sensation, which just is a no-go for him, the feeling like it
Yeah.
elicits a cortisol effect,
Yeah.
or they were so mild they didn't work. And so when I brought him to see Hank, one of our founders, and put him on MindVibe, and he had an immediate response. This was in January of 2021. It literally felt like the universe tapped me on the shoulder. It was like, you need to pay attention.
Right.
And so over the course of the next couple of months, when he was vibing, I was able to get my daughter on the machine. I was able to get my mother on the machine. It was just like crumbs along the path. I was heavily ensconced in this other neuromodulation company. But when I started to see the ceiling of, the very high ceiling of where Dr. Katznelson's technologies could take us, not only nervous system regulation, but brain health optimization,
Mm.
it was a no brainer. So it was that first moment when my son had that experience. And then through that next couple of months where it was like, you need to do this. You learn the mistakes from the previous neuromod company. Everything I felt like I'd done in my career felt like it led me to this point.
Right.
And so that's when it was
I
like,
guess you
and
just
my,
jumped in with both feet, as they say.
yeah, I jumped in with both feet. And the founders are just huge hearts, like just amazing people. And that value and the vision for this was totally aligned.
Mm.
And
So let me ask you about the commitment involved. I mean, we've talked already about how difficult building companies can be, the kind of roller coaster thing. I mean, I think that not only is there got to be some kind of motivation to ride that roller coaster, but there's got to be an underlying commitment. I mean, what sort of commitment has it taken from you to get this far, and what sort of commitment do you think it's going to take to get you to the next bit?
yeah, what kind of commitment? It has taken everything I have. It's 180%.
Right. Okay. They're
And
quite a lot then.
yeah, like more than I would have imagined,
Yeah.
because you hit those challenges where you really have to draw on the why you're doing it. Like if I didn't believe so wholeheartedly in the technology and the transformation I've seen in people because of it, um, it would be very difficult for me to give up everything I have. Like I put everything into this, from a financial standpoint, to the point where I also run a nonprofit. Luckily, I have an awesome person who's driving that, but I'm not giving very much time at all to that, because
Hmm.
my goal right now is to really get our tech out to the people. And so it's taken everything.
Hmm. And what about the next bit?
Yeah. Oh,
I
sorry.
mean,
Yes.
is it going to take everything else? I mean, well, I mean, just, I mean,
Yeah.
if you've
So
given
I think,
everything already,
yep.
what, tell me about the next bit.
Yeah, so the next bit, I think, I don't want to say it's going to be easier, but the challenges will be different,
Yeah.
because as we grow, it'll be more about leaning on the team to execute,
Hmm.
right? Yes, we have a small team now. We talk about span of control and management. It's a small team,
Hmm.
under-resourced. A lot we're having to do ourselves as we scale. we'll bring on partners. We've identified partners that will help
Yeah.
us drive that. And so those challenges will turn into, is my scale manufacturer, doing what they're supposed to be doing? What systems do we need to put in place?
Mm.
Are those systems working? Oh my gosh, no, they're not. There's a bump there. Or yes, it's working marvelously. And this is where I'm excited to really explore the way we can leverage AI
Mm.
to optimize those systems. It'll be very different than how we were building 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, but quite exciting. I mean,
Yes,
lots of exciting
super
opportunities
exciting.
there. I mean, inevitably there's an element of hard work, but
Yes.
it sounds quite exciting to me.
It's exciting, and what's really energizing for me is seeing how many people now are understanding how critical the brain health economy is.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is, for a long time, health has been seen as very kind of discrete parts of our body, right? Your heart, your
yeah,
head,
yeah.
your muscles, cardiology, pulmonology, but we're starting to get how much we are an integrated system.
Mm. And to what extent do you th see a link between kind of energy and effort and hard work and success, or is it purely about kind of talent? I mean, what's your take on that
Oh
issue?
my gosh. Yeah. So there's such a balance there. So, yes, you have to have the right talent and you
Mm,
have to have the right skill set, so to speak, to be able to execute on certain things. But perseverance and
mm,
tenacity and driving to that vision, and having faith, in connecting those pieces, um, is is as or more important.
yeah. I mean, there was a famous US president who said perseverance is everything. I forget which one it was, but I always thought
Right.
that was a well-made point.
Yeah. And there's also a very famous Brit who said, never, never, never quit.
Who was
Right.
that?
Oh, I don't know.
Wasn't
Oh,
Churchill, was it? I mean,
yeah, no, it wasn't him.
yeah,
Right. So, but, and that again is complicated in and of itself because sometimes you have to know when to step back in
yeah.
order to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one
Some,
of the interesting things you see about entrepreneurship is that actually the skill is often knowing when to pivot to, which is the
yes,
language people use now, to change direction, to change tack.
exactly.
That
Yes,
actually is just as important as not giving up. I mean, okay,
that's right.
it's not, you're not giving up, you're changing direction, which is not giving up. I mean, it's still carrying on, but that knowing how to adapt and to change and evolve, I think is a really important skill because inevitably you run up against things that are problematic, and
That's
knowing
right.
whether to push through or maybe go around it some other way is quite an interesting
Yes.
set of decisions to be
Yeah.
made, I think.
So remember at the very beginning, I mentioned how critical it is, to understand what your values and your
Yeah,
purpose
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And those goals and milestones are all painted on that canvas so that when you hit that headwind, you're able to pivot course and you're able to understand what you need to do to effectively, honor those values and that mission. And it may look very, very different than how you imagined it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think it often does look different to the
yes,
way
yes,
people
yes,
imagine it. I
yes.
mean, that's my reading
Yeah,
of it. And what would you say? I'm not sure about this phrase, but I heard it on somebody at Harvard said this the other day. So, what would you say is your superpower as a CEO? I was quite surprised to hear that from a Harvard professor, but I thought it was
yeah.
quite an interesting question. What would you say your superpower is?
I think my superpower is being open,
Right.
like really being willing to consider, different approaches, knowing what our ultimate goal is, but also, not feeling like I have all the answers.
Yeah.
So really being curious and open to different approaches and learning.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I guess it comes back to the point you were making earlier on about curiosity and listening.
yeah,
Kind of relates to that, doesn't it? I mean, what sits behind that is an openness.
yeah,
And if you're
that's
not
right.
open, you're not going to be curious and you're not going to listen. So it's
Yeah,
kind of a component part of that, isn't it, really?
yeah. And then, as we scale, recognizing that each person comes with their own gift or
Yeah.
their own value, their own, yeah, their own superpower. And one of the things about being open and curious is being able to understand what is it that that individual brings to the team, and how do you leverage it in a way that honors who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the challenges that you confront, I mean, what's your take on how, what I'm asking, how do you deal with the inevitable crises? I mean, I use that word crisis as distinct from the kind of challenges that you know you've got to overcome. When crises hit, when the storm is rocking the boat, if you see what I mean. I mean, what's your sort of take about how you get through those situations, which are slightly different to the kind of, I know I've got these challenges to overcome. And what's your take on the kind of crisis piece?
So when the crisis hits, I will often meditate, like
Right.
just giving my brain a chance to process what's going on. Like what is the crisis, and what can we do in the crisis right now to minimize the impact?
Mm,
And that I learned early on you can't do when you're in a fight, flight, or freeze state.
mm,
And so it really is kind of just taking a moment to quiet the brain and letting, the answer kind of rises. It sounds woo woo, but it's not. When you're able to quiet the brain, somehow the brain processes the issue, and then it gives me a sense of certain actions I can take to test.
mm, mm. I mean,
And
I'm
it's
a great believer in that. I mean, I forget who wrote the book about thinking fast and thinking slow. And it seems to me
mm,
that taking a bit of time out to kind of chill out and just mull things over is actually, which is thinking slow, for want of a better way of describing it.
that's
I
right.
mean, taking time to do that is quite a good thing to do when you're in the middle of a crisis because you're more likely to make a better decision rather than sort of running headlong into it. It
That's
strikes me.
right.
And
Yeah.
I guess to what extent would you say you're comfortable being uncomfortable? I mean, that phrase comes up a lot about
Oh
being
my
comfortable
gosh.
being
Ask my
uncomfortable.
kids. It's a mantra I've been telling them since they were babies. Um, I am I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable,
Right.
and even maybe even a little bit too much.
And where does that come from? I mean, is that something that comes from your childhood? I mean, where does that come from?
Yeah, I think it does. My mother, I'm of Japanese American ancestry. My mother was born in the Japanese American internment camps during World War II. They
Wow.
came out to an environment that was very turned against them.
Yeah.
And I witnessed my mother trying to manage that as I was growing up. Wonderful woman, had a chip on her shoulder. Um, and I saw her stifle her promise, like what she could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that I realized, and just growing up, I look very different from other people that I grew up with. Um, and having discomfort being just a part of my being,
Mm,
and learning how to take risks and manage it, and realizing that you can take risks, and any mistakes you make, well, I shouldn't say any, um, there are calculated risks that you can take, that can be managed.
mm.
um,
I
you know
mean,
and and
you mentioned failures. I mean, what sort of failures have you had, and
oh my
what did they
gosh.
reveal to you?
Yeah, so I've had many failures. The first business I ever started was back in the 90s. I was, 26. It was getting ready to be Y2K, and I was working with a consulting firm and started a division of the company that focused on technology, and jumped into it. Didn't spend time really understanding the customer. um I just jumped into it,
Mm,
and miscalculated on pricing and some other things. And so that failure for me was not being able to grow it in the way that I wanted
Mm,
to at the
mm.
time. Um, other,
And what
uh,
did you learn from that? I mean, what did that experience reveal to you? I mean,
yeah, that
did it tell, what
experience.
did, I mean, presumably it told you something about your level of resilience.
Yeah, sure. What it told me, or I learned two big lessons from that. And one is to spend time understanding who you're selling to, like really understanding the
Yeah,
customer,
yeah, yeah.
instead of just jumping in and saying, I know best. That was one. But secondly, specifically around resilience, it was painful, but I didn't dwell on it for too long. I knew I saw the mistakes I made. Um, I I had a sense of how to do things differently, and I took that with me to um, the additional businesses I built.
Mm,
I also recognized, for so long growing up, part of my culture was you don't stick your neck out and you don't ask for help. You need to show that you can do
mm.
things on your own because no one's really going to help you anyway.
And has that changed? Has that view
Yes,
changed?
tremendously. And I have an awesome mentor who's helped me along the way that is just a wonderful man. His name is Dov Baron. Talks a lot about emotional source code as a hidden driver of how one acts, and
Mhm.
you develop this emotional source code when you're young. That was an elevating experience for me, that he kind of guided me through and in discovering why I was holding myself back.
Mm.
So yeah, through those failures and
Yeah.
and lessons learned, and recognizing what were true failures and what were growing experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I had an interesting conversation the other day with a CEO who made a really interesting point about this. He said he doesn't worry about making mistakes or failing.
Mm,
And he said the reason I don't worry about it, he said, I don't think that's the issue. He said the real failure is the failure to exploit the opportunity.
yeah,
It's not making a few mistakes along the way, which are inevitably painful and costly and frustrating and, depressing and all that stuff that goes with getting it wrong. But I thought it's a really interesting point that the big win is exploiting the opportunity. And that's far more important than getting a few bumps in the road, which I thought was a really interesting kind of way of approaching that, actually.
no, I love the way that he frames that,
Yeah.
exploiting the opportunity, because I've seen failures always as these learning experience
Yeah,
that you grow from, and you take that experience and you exploit it. I've never framed it as exploiting the opportunity, and I love that.
mm. Yeah. So I mean, he's an interesting guy,
Yeah,
very clever bloke, as you can see. Let
yeah.
me ask you one couple of last final questions before we wind up. I mean, coming back to all the things you've talked about, I mean, what would you say you have learnt from the process of building, I mean, in your case, multiple businesses? I mean,
Yeah.
what has building a business taught you about yourself?
What building a business has taught about myself, and particularly this last one, is that you cannot force the process and that you do not have control over everything.
Mm,
And that's one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn. You can control what you control in the moment,
mm,
or what you think you can control in the moment. But broadly, you don't have control over everything.
no. In fact,
And
you probably have, it's actually a smaller proportion of things that you have control
yes,
of. I mean, there's most things you don't have control of,
that's
actually.
right.
Yeah,
And for high performing people, they've succeeded because they've done things in a certain way.
yeah,
And there are times when, and it even like gives me angst to say this, sometimes you have to take a deliberate pause,
yeah,
right? To allow all the work that you're doing to coalesce and come together.
yeah, yeah,
And so that's been a challenging lesson to learn, which is why meditation has been so helpful for me. It's a daily practice that really helps me to kind of reframe and reset.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't meditate, but I certainly agree with you about taking time to reflect.
Yeah.
And to kind of, allow the ideas to kind of work through before you know
Yes.
jump in with the next bit. I mean, spending time to reflect on things seems to me to be a pretty important activity, which we kind of underrate actually.
Oh
Um,
yeah, right.
but it's pretty important, I think.
It's it's yeah,
One last question.
yeah.
If you were to offer up a bit of advice to another CEO, what would it be?
Gosh, two things actually. One piece of advice is to remember to breathe,
Mhm.
right? So that is make sure that you're doing those things that engage that rest, digest, and recover function of the body. Because as a CEO, it can be very isolating,
Yeah, yeah.
and very stressful. And so giving your nervous system a chance to rest is incredibly important for your ability to think clearly.
Mm,
So that's one. The second thing is to make sure that you know that you're not alone. So having that network of other trusted leaders, CEOs who have similar circumstances,
mm,
can be incredibly helpful, um, at a very practical level, but also at an energetic level to
mm,
have your peers that you can connect with,
mm. Yeah,
because
it's
it can
great to
be
be
very
part of those
isolating.
things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great to be part of something bigger than yourself. Yeah. Ellen, I mean, some great advice to end on. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. I mean, really useful comments there. And thank you for making a bit of time to come and talk about what you're doing. I mean, I think it's a really interesting proposition. And as you've already alluded to, I mean, it has some really exciting possibilities because of the potential of it to really help people, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
It seems to me. I mean, business actually, I mean, business gets a bit of a bad name sometimes, but actually, most things that business do are designed to help people in one way
That's
or
right.
another. I mean, not everything, but this is definitely an example of a something that could really, really help people. So, thank you for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with us about it, and good luck going forward. I'm sure it's going to be a big success, but good luck.
No, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on. And next time I'm in the UK, I will make sure that you and one of our board members can get together and we can vibe.
Yeah, look forward to it. All right, see you soon, Ellen.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Bye bye.